With so many hedgehogs in one place, bird populations are crashing dramatically.
The RSPB have estimated from studies they've been carrying out recently that within probably 20 years or so, at this current rate of decline, the dunlin could disappear entirely.
1/3 of the UK's breeding population of dunlin traditionally nest on the Macar, the shell sand enriched arable and grassland area at the western edge of the islands. Since the arrival of hedgehogs, however, the numbers of dunlin have declined by more than 60%. This is the first documented case of hedgehogs threatening an internationally important bird population with regional extinction.
There is a certain urgency to start conservation measures to benefit these internationally important bird populations, because each year their numbers appear to be declining more, and if that should continue for many more years, eventually there'll be none left and there'll be nothing left to conserve.
Faced with such an urgent situation, the Royal Society for the Protection of Birds is studying the hedgehogs and the bird populations to ensure that any measures they take are based on solid scientific research. Meanwhile, the hedgehogs are marching up the chain of 3 islands. They have now reached the southern tip of North Uist, and there are plans to build a barricade across the whole island in a last-ditch attempt to halt the advance.
We would probably not have just a single fence, but 3 or 4 parallel fences to sort of compartmentalise the front line area.
But the fences won't stop the hedgehogs for long, thanks to rabbits, another introduced species, whose burrows provide a handy way through for the hedgehogs. The authorities are now facing up to the fact that if the birds are to stay, the hedgehogs will have to go. This raises the prickly question of eradication.
In the United Kingdom, the hedgehog is an extremely popular animal. We can't just go in and kill lots of hedgehogs because there will be a public outcry. The major problem is that hedgehogs are perfectly amenable, innocuous little animals, and we wouldn't want to do them any harm. So we either have to trap them and export them from the island and remove them altogether, or we would have to go down to the extreme case of killing them, and we don't want to do that. So we're up against this problem, a PR problem basically.
The islands are officially protected under several international and European designations, and the government is under an increasing legal obligation to protect these bird populations.
I think you have to be optimistic. We know what this place was like at its peak before hedgehogs arrived. Hedgehogs are popular animals on the mainland, but when you live in an island, you cannot afford to have mainland values. You've got to have the values that are appropriate to the island. And I think we've got to take this seriously, and we've got to convince people on the mainland that this is a serious problem.
As well as the huge ecological impact of invasive species, there is also the financial impact. In the United States, alien weeds have a major effect on the agricultural economy. The rangelands of northwestern America have been invaded by a plant from Europe called leafy spurge. Its milky sap is toxic to cattle, and they can't graze it.
I think if nothing was done by the time this one is 8 years old, by the time he was old enough to take over the ranch, that it would have probably not been a whole lot of grass left. It just wouldn't have been much of a ranch to take over. It would have been better to go to town and get a job.
The US Department of Agriculture estimates the costs to ranchers at $144 million a year. Biological control is one cost-effective solution that's been getting results. Scientists have found flea beetles from Europe that feed exclusively on leafy spurge, and so have introduced this second foreign species to control the first. Government teams are now holding rangeland field days to teach ranchers the basics of biocontrol.
But if you can put down 10,000 in one spot, you will see some big results pretty quickly.
Sweep nets are used to collect the flea beetles and move them onto new patches of spurge. Hundreds of thousands of flea beetles collected by government staff are handed out to the ranchers at the end of the day.
Morris, your name's on the list, Morris.
That's 5.
2 more.
That's 23? Yeah.
Biocontrol is becoming a part of everyday ranching life.
These ranchers are managing these insects much like they'd manage their own cow herds. They're setting up insectaries, moving them to new areas, setting up new insectaries that they can move to every patch of spurge on their ranch. The ranchers out here, everybody had gun racks and guns in back of the pickups. Well, today it's kind of a paradigm shift, and now those shotguns and rifles are being replaced by sweep nets.
Of course, all this was pretty strange, to put bugs on some weeds and you think they're going to eat them and they won't eat anything else. All this was pretty strange. But I was so anxious to do something about this leafy spurge that I would have done most anything, I guess.
It has taken 7 years of testing in quarantine to get to the point of releasing these flea beetles to ensure that they only eat the invasive plants and not the native species.